Pokémon Scarlet and Violet are games that I so desperately wish I could recommend. These games are a paradox. They are so much pure fun at times, but I can't in good conscience say that these are products that should have been sold to the public. Because, sad to say, they simply are not. These are a pair of buggy, broken, ugly games that do not live up to the standards set by Nintendo, or even the Game Freak of the past. These games were clearly rushed out to meet the 2022 holiday season, despite the adverse effect that this rushing had on them. Beyond the glitches and visuals, these games also have a ton of gameplay problems. While they have a lot of good traits, there's always an unavoidable layer of grime laid on top of these traits that brings everything down. Let's talk about it. Warning! This video contains full spoilers for Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. If you haven't played it yet and are interested in doing so, please do that before watching the rest of this video. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It really helps a lot. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or in my case just Violet, follow the typical Pokemon story structure, but with a twist. You are a young child who attends the UVA Academy. Accompanied by your newfound rideable Pokemon named Miraidon, you're tasked with setting out to, quote, find your treasure, whatever that means. After a relatively brief, for Pokemon standards anyway, tutorial, you're set free out into the region of Paldea to basically do whatever you want. The game from here on is split into 3 storylines. First up is Victory Road, which is effectively your standard Pokemon adventure. You travel to 8 gyms, complete the gym challenge at each, defeat the gym leader, and claim your gym badge. After collecting all 8, you face off against the Elite Four and become the champion. The second story is called Starfall Street. A gang of hoodlums called Team Star have set up camp across Paldea, and it's your job to put a stop to their operations, discover who their true leader is, and defeat them. The final storyline is the Path of Legends. Various powerful Pokemon known as Titans have appeared across Paldea, and it's up to you to defeat them along with your fellow student named Arvin. Along the way, you begin to learn about Miraidon's history and its powers. To be honest, I didn't find any of the 3 storylines of Pokemon Violet to be very engaging. These stories are definitely aimed squarely at kids. What I mean by this is that none of the 3 storylines are very deep or interesting, except for at the very end of the game when they finally converge. I never found there to be a strong hook for any of the plot lines, nothing to keep me interested for the duration. Victory Road barely has any plot, and is more or less a straight gym adventure with occasional, "Wow, you're so strong, player!" moments. Path of Legends has the angle of Arvin's relationship with his family, but it isn't expanded upon until the very end of the game. Starfall Street is the storyline I found the most interesting. The story of a bunch of misfit kids who were bullied and lash out by forming Team Star and terrorizing, that's terrorizing in quotes by the way, the students of Mesagoza is certainly an interesting idea and something I can find a bit relatable too. However, I just felt there was something wrong with how this particular story was told. It never really took hold of its themes and ran with them all the way, never quite tugging at my heartstrings like I feel it was supposed to, even with the revelations displayed at the very end. Additionally, the lack of a strong central antagonist really hurts this game. There's no one like N or Lusamine in this game, no one for you to sympathize towards or root against. The closest thing this game comes to having a villain is the professor's AI turned evil, who shows up in the last hour of the game with no build-up and no development. I don't really consider Team Star to be very strong antagonists because they barely do anything, and Penny is already redeemed way before you discover she's even the founder. The lack of a strong antagonist means that this game relies mostly on intrinsic motivation for its storyline to continue moving forward. You have to find this personally fulfilling and interesting, and I personally didn't. I had to force myself to keep going for the purposes of giving this game a fair and honest review. I honestly wanted to put it down. The biggest problem with all 3 storylines is how fucking long-winded they are. There is so much dialogue in this game. I feel like at least a quarter of my playtime was spent reading dialogue. You know, I'm fine with reading dialogue. I love visual novels, for example, and I play them all the time. But you know what a lot of VNs have that Pokemon doesn't have? Interesting dialogue, mysteries, suspense, stakes. After a certain point, I grew so bored with reading the most basic dialogue known to man that I just started mashing through dialogue boxes like this. Maybe this is more interesting to kids. Maybe I'm just not the target audience. Still, that doesn't change the fact that I found this game's story to be really uninteresting. What slightly saves the story of this game is the characters. While the stories they're stuck in might be kind of boring, the characters themselves are quite easy to love. Nimona is like a shonen protagonist turned Pokemon rival, feverishly obsessed with battling and especially battling you. Arven is given a bunch of comedic butt monkey moments that create a strong contrast with his incredibly depressing backstory and relationship with his Pokemon. Penny is absolutely adorable, and also a total mood with her shyness and attitude. While not all of the gym leaders are winners, in fact most of them are honestly kinda bland, Laria and Iono are total standouts, and the Elite Four are all very memorable. The characters of this game are a win in my book, one that this game sorely needed. So, the story of this game is mostly bland and uninteresting, even compared to other Pokemon games. How does the gameplay hold up then? Well, it's a bit complicated. The aspect of the gameplay that shines the brightest in my eyes is the exploration. This game is, for the most part, a truly open world. Is there a Pokemon you want for your team? Go out there and find it. Need a particular TM for your moveset? It's somewhere out there. It's this level of freedom that makes the game really fun to play and explore within. However, it isn't all perfect. While this game is fully open, you are restricted in some ways. You can't walk straight to wherever you want to go like Breath of the Wild. Sometimes the path forward will be blocked by a Team Star boss you need to defeat, because otherwise the grunts won't let you past. Additionally, you're restricted by the levels of Pokemon and gym leaders. Due to the lack of level scaling in this game, there is a certain order you are intended to beat things in according to the assigned levels. This isn't like Breath of the Wild where you could go wherever you wanted and do anything in any order. There is an intended route, and straying from that route can have disastrous consequences. What do I mean by disastrous consequences? Well, go to a gym leveled way lower than your team's levels, say bye-bye to any challenge that gym may have offered, head into an area where Pokemon are vastly higher leveled than you are, then you're going to get one shot. And even if you do somehow manage to catch one of these Pokemon, you probably can't use it because you don't have enough gym badges and it won't listen to your commands. This hurts the sense of exploration because exploring off the intended route is effectively pointless. On top of this is Miraidon's locked moveset. Miraidon is able to do a lot of things. Speed boost, glide, climb walls, etc. However, these are all locked behind progression in the Path of Legends storyline, which is gated by levels, the highest of which being all the way at level 55 for the final Titan. That's basically the end of the game. So for most of the game, you're dealing with a neutered Miraidon who can barely traverse the world and effectively has to follow the ground roads available to you, unless you're sneaky and like to abuse glitches like me. I'm okay with the game locking things like this behind progression, but I'm not okay with the game claiming to be a fully open world when it really isn't for most of the game. Okay, so the exploration isn't perfect. But what about battling, the other half of the game? Battling in this game is extremely similar to the previous games, similar to a fault. In fact, my biggest problem with the game is the battling. Pokemon has, since Generation 1, always had simple but fun battles. They're effectively glorified rock, paper, scissors where you have to pinpoint your opponent's weaknesses and exploit them for massive damage. This has worked for 9 generations now. However, I simply cannot stand this formula in its current form anymore. I understand that these games are meant for kids at the end of the day. However, kids aren't brain dead. They deserve at least a little challenge, and this game didn't offer it with any of the battles during the main storyline. Super effective moves do so much damage in this game. I feel like at least 80% of my time battling was spent one-shotting my opponent's Pokemon into the dirt, or at least coming very close to it. I wasn't even that over-leveled until the end of the game when I started grinding for real. This insane amount of damage makes a lot of the aspects of the combat basically worthless. Anything that buffs your attack is usually unnecessary because you're one-shotting the NPCs anyway, and wasting a turn using said moves can mean you're deaf from an enemy one-shot. Statuses aren't needed because a fainted opponent is better than a confused or burned one. More complex strategies or problem solving are never needed because this game is just so easy. Maybe in the competitive scene these moves are better, but in the main game they're almost worthless. Other RPGs like Final Fantasy at least make you think about what you're doing. In Pokémon Violet, all you have to do is memorize the weaknesses of the enemy Pokémon and then trial and error them to death until you win. There were a few times I had trouble with gym leaders or Team Star members, but it was never due to a real actual challenge. It was always me being underleveled. So, what did I end up having to do? Well, I ate a ham sandwich and started murdering Chanseys by the hundreds. Then I was suitably leveled and was able to start destroying fights again. I didn't realize ham sandwiches were so powerful.
Popeye's chicken sandwich.
I only played through to the credits of the game, so sadly I did not experience terror raids or the post-game. I will not be factoring them into my opinion for this review. So, we've discussed the gameplay and my problems with it. What about the presentation of this game? Ha! Ha ha ha! These are some of the ugliest looking games I've played in recent memory. You know why. You've seen it all over the internet, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. The textures look horrible in many areas. The game runs like garbage constantly. The pop-in and bugs are rampant and all over the place. It's almost a disgrace that these games were released in this state for $60. I understand that Game Freak has a schedule to stick to, and that they're basically bound by the anime and merchandise sales, but something needs to change if the quality of these games is ever to improve. What hurts the most about this game's terrible visual presentation is that, while this is a game focused on the wonder of exploration, I was never wowed by anything I saw. There's never that big, beautiful vista that shocks and mesmerizes you. It's all bland, flat, and boring. The closest thing I found to an interesting location in the game was Area Zero, which you can't even access until the last hour of the game. This is the quality that every area should have strived towards. The lack of voice acting also continues to hurt Pokemon. If this dialogue was just voiced, maybe it wouldn't be so horrifically boring to sit through, and maybe the story would be that much more interesting. I don't know. What I do know is that the music in this game is fucking incredible. The music of this game is honestly probably my favorite part about it. This is one of my favorite game soundtracks from recent memory, and it actively helped improve my enjoyment of the game. Exploration themes are bouncy and fun, and I found myself tapping my feet to the beat while exploring. The real standout are the battle themes. Oh my god, the battle themes! These are so full of energy and excitement, it actively helps to elevate the boring-ass battle system. Some of them are total bangers too, like listen to this!
Yo, yo, yo! Ah!
So, in conclusion, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet are a complete mess. While they are fun at times, they're still brought down by an uninteresting story, poor gameplay, and a god-awful presentation, besides the music, which still slaps. I simply cannot recommend that you spend your $60 on either of these games. Maybe on a sale, but not at full price. The Pokemon games and the media monolith they've birthed have grown out of control, and it's starting to show in the quality of the games. It's sad to see a franchise I once loved go down this route. Game Freak needs to reevaluate their strategy, or else these games will continue to go down a dark path of mediocre quality. That's all I have to say. My name is Night Paradox. Have a good night, and stay wicked.